Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going on an absolutely fascinating journey. We're going to start with an unexplained mystery from the ancient world, and then we're going to connect it directly to the deep mechanics of modern laser technology. I know, it sounds wild, but we'll explore how silent communication and immense mental focus are actually rooted in the exact same scientific principles that allow us to cut right through solid steel. By the end of this, it's going to completely change how you view the power of concentrated thought. Okay, let's dive into this. We're starting our story at Maharishi Ramana's ashram, which is nestled in the beautiful mountainous region of Arunachalam. One day, a highly unusual and honestly kinda humorous event took place. A female monkey wanders into the ashram and just starts complaining loudly, chattering relentlessly. And no matter how much anyone tried to shoo her away, she just flat out refused to leave. Well, as it turns out, her husband was the king of the local monkey troupe, and he had recently taken a second wife. This first queen was absolutely not having it, so she planted herself right there in protest.
Now, what's genuinely remarkable here isn't just the monkey's protest, but the human reaction to it. Maharishi Ramana perfectly understood her grievance without a single physical word being exchanged. He actually told the people around him exactly what was wrong, explaining the Monkey King's new marriage and the first queen's very understandable jealousy. Just think about that for a second. Between a human and an animal, without speaking a word, there was a perfectly accurate telepathic exchange of complex emotion. But you know what? That was just the beginning. What happened next is the real mystery.
Following this realization, the Maharishi just quieted his mind and entered a state of deep, thoughtless meditation. Within moments, literally moments, the Monkey King himself arrived at the ashram, acting as if he had been inexplicably dragged there by some invisible force. And without any chaos, the king peacefully appeased his upset queen and gently led her away. This entire super complex conflict was resolved entirely through silent, subtle energy flows. And this wasn't just some crazy isolated incident. Records from our source material show that hundreds of people at the ashram benefited from these exact same wordless inspirations and silent resolutions.
So, obviously this brings us to a massive question. How on earth can quiet, focused thoughts hold such tangible, physical power over others? Is intense concentration just a subjective mental state, or is there a massive science of energy operating right beneath the surface? To truly grasp this ancient mystery, we actually have to turn to a brilliant, highly technological metaphor from modern physics. Let's look at this fraction, 1/8 of a second. Science tells us that a highly focused laser beam is so unimaginably powerful that it can pierce straight through a 1-foot thick wall of solid steel in just 1/8 of a second. Literally, in less time than it takes you to blink, solid iron is instantly melted away. That's not magic, folks. That is pure, measurable science. Now, what's really interesting about this is that lasers don't just destroy, they create incredible miracles. These concentrated beams can perform exquisitely delicate surgery on something as fragile as the human eye. They are completely revolutionizing the future of rapid medical healing. Theoretically, the sheer concentrated power of a laser could even transmit a perfectly clear human voice across the entire universe, reaching a listener hiding deep inside a dense jungle cave on Earth. How wild is that?
But where does all this immense physical power actually come from? Well, think about ordinary light, like the bulb illuminating your room right now. Its waves scatter in every single direction, which leaves the light weak and diffused. But then you have a laser beam. Fundamentally, a laser is nothing more than that exact same light, but with its scattered waves gathered and concentrated into a single unified direction. When scattered waves are focused into one singular point, they generate an immense physical force capable of slicing right through steel.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that this exact same rule of physics applies directly to the human mind. Maharishi Patanjali's famous sutra, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, tells us exactly this. It defines yoga as the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. Just as science gathers scattered light to create a powerful laser, ancient mental practices were designed to gather our scattered diffuse thoughts and focus them intensely onto a single precise point.
We can actually map modern science and ancient practice right next to each other. On one side, we have laser beams, which are simply concentrated waves of physical light. On the flip side, we have mantras, which serve as concentrated waves of mental energy. Both of these tools operate on the exact same scientific principle: gathering diffused energy, stopping its outward scatter, and transforming it into a single, highly powerful directional flow. It's the exact same mechanic.
Building on this parallel, the source material makes a deeply powerful assertion.
It claims that chanted mantras generate electromagnetic-like energy waves. Because of this, a mantra's power must be equal to or perhaps even far greater than the physical power of a laser beam. Let that sink in. This isn't just poetic phrasing. It is literally treating the human mind as a massive generator of focused energy.
But hey, this naturally leads to a very logical follow-up question. If mantras are truly as powerful as lasers, why don't we always see the physical results immediately, right? Like, why don't people experience miracles every time they chant a few words? If someone just mechanically repeats a phrase over and over, why doesn't it instantly alter their physical reality? It's a great question.
To understand why, we have to look at the difference between a mechanical tool and an active transmitter. If you just repeat words mechanically, your mind basically acts like a radio receiver. A radio can pick up a broadcast, sure, but the listener can't transmit a reply back to the station. It's a limited, one-way street. However, when you introduce deep emotion, like that telepathy we talked about earlier, your mind stops being a passive receiver. Intense emotional energy turns your brain into a powerful, active transmitter, capable of sending messages globally, entirely without the need for physical equipment.
That missing key ingredient is emotion, or Bhav Samvedna as the source calls it. Emotion is the ultimate amplifier here. The text explains that the power of emotion is exponentially greater than the power of the intellect alone. Think of it like this. Chanting a mantra mechanically is like sitting in a fancy sports car with a pristine engine but absolutely zero fuel in the tank. Deep emotional resonance, the genuine feeling behind the words, is the required fuel that actually makes the mantra work.
So we can clearly see the stark difference between these two approaches. First, you have mechanical chanting. Because it completely lacks emotional power, getting any sort of physical result from this method will take a remarkably long time. But then, you have emotion-infused chanting. When the practice is actively fueled by deep faith, absolute belief, and pure love, the physical outcomes manifest rapidly. Basically, your internal emotional state directly dictates the speed and success of the external physical result.
And this brilliantly illustrates what actually happens when you add that emotional fuel. A mantra stops being just a thought. This emotion-infused power actively vibrates the surrounding physical environment. But even more importantly, it creates deep, transformative vibrations within the practitioner themselves. It takes an ordinary, everyday personality and fundamentally alters it, literally turning the individual into something entirely radiant and luminous.
Grounding all of this in practical application, the source text focuses heavily on Gayatri sadhana. It firmly establishes that this ancient practice is absolutely not rooted in blind faith, old myths, or superstitions. Rather, it is a highly systematic, deeply scientific process of self-development. It relies on a very specific mechanism of cause and effect, much like the physics of our laser beam. Let's move forward and see how this builds in real time. The mechanics are elegantly straightforward. Step 1. You begin with simple systematic chanting. Step 2. You unify all that scattered mental energy by injecting it with deep, genuine emotional resonance. You become the laser. Step 3. Once that focus is achieved, it effortlessly awakens hidden physical energies within your gross body. It requires minimal physical exertion, yet it systematically unlocks dormant potential for quick and certain benefits.
Which brings us to this final thought. If ordinary, scattered light can be gathered and focused so intensely that it slices straight through a wall of solid steel, what miracles could you achieve if you focused your scattered mental energy with the fuel of your emotions? What untapped power is currently hiding inside of you, just waiting to be concentrated like a laser? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this explainer, and we'll see you next time.